Isn't it strange that princes and kings and clowns that caper in sawdust rings and common people like you and me are builders for eternity? Each is given a bag of tools, a shapeless mass, a book of rules, and each must make, ere life is flown, a stumbling block or a stepping stone. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We would like to welcome you to the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Delta Mu Mu Chapter's 9th Annual Achievement Week Brunch and Celebration. The Achievement Week Committee has put together an outstanding program that will honor the achievement and the success of many notable people, some that are in this room and some that are not. We want you to enjoy yourself, get to know your neighbors, fellowship with each other, and our job is to start on time and end on time, and make sure that you have a good time and also have a great brunch as well. With that said, we'll move right along into the program, and we will move right into Brother Justin Valentine.
Good morning. As Brother Daniel said, I'm Justin Valentine, 2017 Delta Mu Mu Chapter Achievement Week Chair. Achievement Week, the brunch this morning, is the high point of our week. Throughout this past week and even leading into the next, the brothers of the chapter are involved with a number of activities, from fellowship activities to community service, on to our actual Founders Day, which is on November 17th. Today, this morning, we will highlight brothers in the chapter that have exceeded and gone above and beyond their call of duty, and also individuals in the community. Sit back and enjoy. We'll give you a historical context of Achievement Week and where that comes from, and we will celebrate Delta Mu Mu Chapter, the Georgia large graduate chapter of the year, and all its achievements for this past 365 days. Thank you for coming. Enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, my job is pretty simple. It's to keep us on time, but also provide appropriate factoids. That gentleman that you just heard from, Justin Valentine, is one of the younger members in our chapter. And as you'll note throughout the program, he has been an achiever and an overachiever. In fact, you will find that the members of this chapter are achievement-oriented and all about serving the community and leaving our community better than we found it. The next voice that you'll hear is not only the gentleman that's going to bring the occasion, but he is a notable historian, someone that has a deep and abiding knowledge of the fraternity back to its roots. It's not by coincidence that he was initiated on the campus of Howard University in Alpha Chapter, in Alpha Chapter. With that said, we bring forward for the occasion Brother Jonathan Matthews.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And welcome again to our 9th Annual Achievement Week Brunch. Contained on page 2 of your program booklet is a detailed narrative on the origins of Achievement Week. At your leisure, I encourage you to read it. What's not included in that narrative is the conditions surrounding the necessity for the creation of what was then called the Campaign for the Study of Negro Literature and History in 1920, which was the precursor to Achievement Week. On the eve of the decade in American history known as the Roaring Twenties, racism and discrimination of African Americans were at one of the highest points since the Civil War. In the preceding decade, 569 blacks were lynched. In 1915, D.W. Griffin turned a best-selling novel about the glory of the white supremacy group, the Ku Klux Klan, into one of the most successful pictures of the silent film era, The Birth of a Nation. At the time, it was the highest grossing film in US history, until Gone with the Wind in 1939, which was in a similar vein. The Birth of a Nation inspired the resurrection of the Klan just 22 miles from here in Stone Mountain in 1915. By 1925, America's original terrorist organization boasted over 3 million members, helped elected 16 senators, and claimed to control 24 of the 48 state legislatures. In May of 1917, over 100 African Americans were killed in East St. Louis riots, while the same rung true for the Tulsa race riots during Memorial Day weekend in 1921, just 1 month after the implementation of Omega's campaign. Over 300 blacks were killed, and 35 city blocks of what was called the Black Wall Street, the African American neighborhood of Glenwood in Tulsa, were destroyed. Tired of racism in the South and the potential economic opportunity in the North, what is now called the Great Migration occurred when more than 1.5 million African Americans moved from the South to northern cities like Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York between 1915 and 1929. But out of the ashes of this despair rose a movement, a resistance that has never before seen in American history up to that time. This movement was initiated, sparked by black intellectuals such as Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, Carter G. Woodson, and Marcus Garvey, and advanced by the establishment of the NAACP in 1909, along with an awakening of the juxtaposition found by returning African American soldiers in World War I, including 116 Omega men, from the battlefields of France, where they fought to make the world safe for democracy. They received a taste of equality, freedom, and respect from the French, only to be disenfranchised and treated as third-class citizens when they got home. They weren't having that. So launched this new Negro movement, as it was called by noted scholar Dr. Elaine Locke, that promoted a sense of racial pride, cultural self-expression, economic independence, and progressive politics. This was the launching point for the Harlem Renaissance and Omega's campaign for the study of Negro literature and history. Much has changed in 98 years. African Americans has attained an unprecedented degree of social, political, and economic achievement, including the ascension of a black man to the highest office in the land, the President of the United States. But as one of my boys always says, don't let the smooth taste fool you. While 23% of African Americans have a college degree, unemployment for blacks is more than double that of whites at 7.5%. There's a celebration of the Old South and Southern culture that includes the Confederate flag and honoring of traitors and oppressors in the form of Civil War monuments, where 54% of Americans view them as symbols of Southern pride, and only 26% see them as symbols of racism. Georgia, which, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, has 90 monuments to the Confederate heroes, ranks second only to Virginia in the total number of monuments, which has 96. Hatred is seen when on a warm summer evening in June of 2015, 9 African Americans are gunned down by a white man during a Bible study at a church in North Charleston. We take a knee during the national anthem to protest police brutality, to the jeers and slurs of 47% of Americans who believe that we are disrespecting the flag and should be grateful for what we have in America. And we have a man in the Oval Office that at best one can say is not a friend to African Americans. Understanding our history and using that as fuel for greater progress is needed now just as it was in 1920. If we don't advance our history and achievement, who will? That is why we're gathered here today. That is the occasion for today. Thank you for attending today's program and enjoy.
We are now going to welcome the person that will introduce our keynote speaker. Our keynote speaker has something very exciting and invigorating to share with us, but I think it's important that we learn about our keynote speaker and his background first. With that said, I'd like to introduce Brother Ryan Van, who's going to share with us the background on our esteemed speaker.
I would like to extend another good morning and welcome to our family, friends, and esteemed guests, as well as to Brotherhood. So, if you will, go with me back to 1988. Selma, Alabama. Westside Middle School, 6th grade, 3rd period. Brother Anthony Harris's physical education class. We knew him then as Coach Harris. But two young men from opposite sides of town came together and formed an inseparable bond, if you will. And that, in and of itself, was the genesis. It was the genesis of a multitude of shenanigans that ran afoot from middle school to high school and beyond, and still hold legendary in the records of our dear alma mater, Selma High School, to this day. I promise you, if you go back to Selma, Alabama right now and ask anybody about that old Maurice Hobson and Ryan Van in that class of 1995, they can sit down and tell you a story. But through middle school, junior varsity and varsity football, summer workouts, girlfriends, high school chorus and choir, where we sang, we didn't sing, we sang old Negro spirituals. Taught by our late choir director, Mr. Jerry Britt, rest his soul. Running the yard together at UAB as frat and chapter brothers, respectively standing by each other's side as we where we pledged our love and our life to our spouses, childbirth, and ultimately supporting each other through the loss of parents. I guess you could say me and Brother Hobson did our life together and we're still continuing to do life together. He is the author of The Legend of the Black Mecca, Politics and Class in the Making of Modern Atlanta, which is available on Amazon on pre-order. Well, it's out now. But Maurice has the gift of leveraging social sciences to explain and explore the condition of black folk in the American South. He has served on several panels, written many thought-provoking and information-rich articles and theses, and conducted many interviews regarding politics, religion, and the state of Black America. He is genuinely considered one of the great young minds in the field of history worldwide. So without any further delay, I would like to, with great honor and pride, present to you the number 2 off of the 1996 line of the Marching Kappa Delta chapter, the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Some brothers know him as Dynamite. Other brothers know him as Mojo Q. His students at Georgia State know him as Professor Hobson. I know him as trusted friend and pro-fight. Doctor, Professor, and brother, Maurice J. Hobson.
morning. Good morning. Thank you, Brother Van, for that introduction. Ryan Van and I have known each other for a very long time. And when we talk about shenanigans, we actually mean shenanigans. If I didn't know me based on what he said, I would at least like to get to know him. And so that's an unusual place to be. I'd also like to thank several of you here. Over the years, I've made several friends with members of Delta Mu Mu. I see my primary physician, Dr. Mark Harrigan. One of the things that we always talk about is if we want to have a strong Omega, we must have a healthy Omega. And so, brothers, go see him. Get yourselves together. He helped me and put that on first and foremost. Brother Jonathan Matthews may not remember the first time that I met him. I was in high school. My brother was at Howard University, and my brother was doing a long walk when initiated into Alpha Chapter. And I met this guy who was leading the dial. If you know anything about Alpha Chapter, that's what's going on. And so I am so grateful to be here with you. Brother Kevin Harris, Brother Vontel, Vontel, what's your last name? Johnson. I see several brothers from the greatest year in the fraternity, the year that saved the frat, as we tell ourselves, 1996, the year that Outkast said, 96 is going to be the year that all the player haters going to bite. It's good to see you guys, and I hope you all post this and group me that we're here doing this. But first, giving glory to the Supreme Basilisk, the creator and sustainer of the universe. There are a host of other names that men may call him: Allah, Elohim, Krishna, Ra, Amen, Olodumare, Olarin, or Horus, just to name a few, who is the head of my life, and to his mercy, grace, and sacrifice we received through salvation, I greet you. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers of Delta Mu Mu and the larger Atlanta area, distinguished guests, I greet you in the mighty name of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, where friendship is essential to the soul. I would like to thank Delta Mu Mu's Achievement Week Committee Chair, Brother Justin Valentine, for this opportunity, and Brother Reginald Carson, Brother Basilisk Reginald Carson, and the notable historian Jonathan Matthews for the invitation to speak to this august body. It took very little to convince me to be a part of this. And Brother Valentine, needless to say, I'm here. And don't worry, brothers, I won't embarrass you. I even put on clean underwear for today. First, let me throw out my disclaimer. The views and opinions of this speaker are expressly his and only his, and should not be imputed upon or assumed to represent the thoughts, opinions, or positions of any other member, charter, chapter, or district of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Everything is so legal today, you gotta cover your bases. So I'm just making sure that that's clear. But getting started, I've been charged with the dutiful task this morning of sharing a perspective and reflection on the greatness of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. I hope that something that I will say will inform you, enlighten, and inspire you to living a better quality of life. Now, I am not a preacher, nor have I been called to preach. Brother Pat and I were just talking about that as we were sitting here. But as I earlier stated, I did grow up in Selma, Alabama, and I grew up heavily in the church. And with that being stated, I'm going to use a bit of scripture to set the text. Matthew 16:13 states, "When Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, 'Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?' And they said, 'Some say thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, some Jeremiah, or one of the major prophets.' But then he said unto them, 'But whom say ye that I am?' And Simon Peter answered and said, 'Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God.'" Now, I don't actually believe that Jesus was actually concerned with what people thought of him when he posed this question to his disciples. He was not seeking fame or trying to determine his political approval, what his political approval rating would be. As I think of my late father's words in which he would often tell us, a lion does not concern himself with the opinion of sheep. I personally believe that he was testing his disciples, whom had been with him and saw him in action daily, to determine if they really knew who and what they were dealing with. Christ had an agenda and a purpose that had to be fulfilled. He needed to be sure that those closest to him would help him to fulfill this purpose to completion. I will use as a subject today, call and response, Omega men. Who do men say that we are? Let's think about that for a second. Initially, when I began to collect my thoughts on this, I was going to call it calling all cues to the floor, but then I said that might be a little too jovial because, the brothers are going to be eating and all kind of different things. But I've decided to kind of look at this because I want to kind of lay some things out, put this in full historical context. And to do that, let me help you understand what you're dealing with when Omega's name is spoken. In 1903, when W.E.B. Du Bois coined the phrase, the talented 10th, the best of the race, that they may guide the masses, he asserted that the most able men and women of the race were and are responsible for the masses. That would help and lead, or to create leaders. In a nutshell, this is what is deemed as racial uplift theory. So the cardinal principle of uplift goes directly into that. This concept has its flaws, but during the nadir period, meaning the period of 1880 to 1930 for black folk, which is considered to be the lowest period in the history of the black experience, it was the best vehicle in place to move black America forward during that time frame. In the era of self-help, pulling one's self up by his or her bootstraps through the emergence of the American Negro Academy, a movement of black education that cultivated a black-centered curriculum for black college goers and school-aged children, which spawned offshoot movements such as the New Negro movement and its expressive arm, the Harlem Renaissance. The founding of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity in 1911 came just less than 50 years after the abolition of slavery, which arrived on January 1st, 1863. At this moment in our history, the 1910 U.S. Census reports that the nation's population was 100 million citizens, of which 10 million identified as of African descent. In this, Thomas Jesse Jones' Negro Education, a study of private and higher schools for college people in the United States commissioned by the Department of Interior's Bureau of Education, reported that of that 10 million, 1,643 students of African descent were receiving an education that was deemed a college education, and 1,001 of those attended Howard University. The Mecca is a very real concept. If you do the math, that means that 0.0001643 of the black population was receiving a college level education in 1911, and 0.001% were attending Howard University. Noted historian James Anderson, who just so happens to be Rho Gamma Stillman College 1963, explains that a New England classical liberal arts education espoused the cultivation to the intellect of black folk, a curriculum that entailed courses in Latin, Greek, math, science, and philosophy, and in some cases, one other modern language. It was obvious that students attending college during this period were extremely elite individuals. Thus, Howard University was a haven for culture of excellence, black intelligence, and perseverance with the purpose of producing high-quality graduates, which would impact and change the world. It is from this paradigm that our three undergraduate founders and their faculty advisor emerged and gave birth to the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. One thing about the culture of excellence, you are never the same once you've been exposed to it. You have to know what you're dealing with. Now, brothers, I'm about to flex my historical muscles. Now, let me share something with you all about African American history. Most people that enjoy it see it as a hobby. There are some of us that actually use it as a profession. And I say that because oftentimes, if I'm taking MARTA or going somewhere, someone will say, hey, are you that professor, at Georgia State? I'm like, well, yeah. And then they want to talk to me about it. And I'm like, well, I don't know if we want to talk about that right now. But I'm sharing this because I want to really give you a full kind of understanding of how you connect something that happens on a very local level to an international level. It is simply not good enough to know the fraternity's history without being able to connect it to the larger experiences of African Americans, the African diaspora, and American history. I just gave you the stats that less than 1% of our people were attending college at the founding of the fraternity. However, what has not been expounded upon in the founding of Omega Psi Phi is the fact that between 1909 and 1913, there were an unprecedented number of lynchings that held black men in fear of their lives in the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia corridor. Unlike most lynchings, which derived from false narratives that claimed the lives of black men in this country due to purports of sexual assault towards white women, or for the actual reason of most lynchings, which was an economic threat to the white establishment, these murders took place because black men in the DMV corridor had been deemed as uppity Negroes and needed to be reminded of their place in a white supremacist society. It is arrogant and irresponsible for us to write a colorful history of our fraternity and not grapple with the idea that one of the major purposes of the founding of Omega Psi Phi was to stave off white terror and form a brotherhood that protected the black community in general and black college-educated men in particular. It is for this reason that Omega men joined Howard University's Student Army Training Corps, which served as the precursor to the Reserved Officers Training Corps and prepared men for officer training duty in our military. Omega needed men that were willing and able to protect themselves, be mentally and physically fit, with high intellect, or as the youngsters of today say, be about that life. However, as I was collecting my thoughts for this particular engagement, I was reminded that for the most part, Omega has been exemplary. It has been at the forefront of every human endeavor imaginable, from politics to civil rights, to the arts, education, sports, medicine, to championing for the ills of social justice. You name it, we've done it, and we've done it better than anyone else. Many of us are still doing it at a very high level. Case in point, throughout American history, Omega's light has burned bright in the midst of the tempest, looking over equality and citizenships in places such as the state of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. When Medgar Evers traveled Mississippi as a field secretary for the NAACP, it was Omega men that served as his security. When children were beaten, churches were bombed, and bridges were crossed in Alabama, Omega men such as Oscar Adams and Fred Gray Sr. were there working. When freedom songs were sung during the 1962 Albany, Georgia movement, Omega man Bayard Rustin was in the mix. When Mary McLeod Bethune opened the Daytona Literacy and Industrial Training School for African American women, Omega men did the teaching. However, I also recognize, as we are now 6 years into our second century of existence, that we, Omega, are in the midst of an identity crisis. Brothers, we are at a critical crossroad. There's a gap as to what we say we are versus who we are through our actions. Now, what I'm about to put out here will ruffle some feathers or step on some toes. The elders from whence I come often state that a hit dog will holler. But some of you may want to put me in the cut, take me to the grass, wreck. And I should let you all know, by the way, I am undefeated in 21 years for all of that. The only person that's ever wrecked me is my ace, who was the strongest man in college football, but we were just playing when we wrestled. So just letting y'all know that. But the question is are we doing enough? The answer is no. We are present in the community, the churches, the schools. And I know that I am not talking to anyone in here. I do want to say this. Delta Mu is an exceptional chapter. I've seen the work that you all do. You really put your money where your mouth is, and I commend you for that. But we can always do better. But it's not enough to just host a program, take the picture and the lead. It's not okay. It's not okay when the nation's president spews and assesses hate by erecting walls and taking health care from citizens. Any clown knows that in order to have a strong nation, one must have healthy people. It is not okay when 155 citizens in the state of Georgia have lost their lives at the hands of the police since 2013. 60% of them are brown or black men. And just so you know, between 1880 and 1932, there were 458 known lynchings that took place in the state of Georgia. At this point, the police have killed 1/3 of that number in 4 years. It is not okay. It is not okay when the Stand Our Ground law in Florida is being used to eliminate people of color systematically. It is difficult to explain to my son and my nephews and many of you all's children that your life is in danger because of your gender and your race. And America has said it is okay to kill us, but it is not okay. In terms of voting rights issues in the state of Alabama, which are still a problem 50 years later after Bloody Sunday in the state of Alabama, it is not okay. The sexual violence which is projected onto black girls, who are the most successful demographic in the United States, not in black America, in the United States, that is, other than any other race or ethnicity, where black girls are 1.75 times more likely than white women to experience child and sexual abuse. I want to pause right here and break from the script. Several months ago, I received a phone call from Georgia Public Broadcast. There's a TV show, A Seat at the Table. And the sister called me and she says, Maurice, I need you to be on this show. She says, we're going to talk really bad about men, but we need somebody that's strong enough to be able to handle the criticism. And she says, you're an Omega man, so I know that you can handle it. So I said, okay, cool. So I go down, they put all kind of makeup on me, and I found out my colors were burnt amber and ginger. That's what I found out about myself. I thought I was just beige, but they told me I was something else. And so we get on the set, and some of what the sisters were saying was inaccurate about what men think about them. But one of the things that I did have to pause and consider was the fact that they thought that was real to them, and I had to listen to them. And I'm saying this, brothers, we have to do better in supporting our sisters in terms of political and social movements. When Maxine Waters was being attacked by Bill O'Reilly, brothers assumed that Maxine had that under control, but we should have been at the forefront backing him down. We must support the gender equity wage gap. We must support health care for women. So there's a lot that we must do. It is not okay. These things are all not okay. However, Omega is involved in correcting these issues, but we're not at the forefront. The culture of excellence in which Omega was born has been diluted because we have been distracted from fulfilling our purpose. We have been distracted by mammon, greed, selfishness, and apathy. You factor in distractions such as the Real Housewives of Atlanta, Love and Hip Hop, and various social media outlets, and we have a very, very real problem. Very successful people are not easily distracted. However, I do want to offer some solutions as we move forward. Since you asked me so nicely, how can we work this out? Let me give you a few. It's simple. Recalibrate by re-embracing excellence. Excellence for Omega was outlined in our purpose and adherence to our 4 cardinal principles. You got to know what you're dealing with. There's a 3-step process. Watch this. The first thing is to refocus on the gift that God, the Creator, has blessed you with and to operate within it. Biblically, it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all of his righteousness, and all other things will be added unto you. However, I'm not here to preach, and I got about 4.5 minutes left. Yes. The second is to embrace the essence of the 4 cardinal principles. Manhood is where a man is held accountable for his actions and leadership. One that has accepted the role of Godhead leadership. There is an order to this. And kingdom thinking, that makes me think of the first stanza of Rudyard Kipling's If, which states, if you keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for the doubting too. The second principle of scholarship, which is the continuous thirst for knowledge and the proper application of knowledge. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, but in all thy getting, get understanding. Also use discretion. The third principle, cardinal principle, perseverance. To maintain steady persistence in a course of action, The Apostle Paul told Timothy to endure hardness as a good soldier in Christ Jesus. The fourth is uplift, to improve socially, culturally, morally, in all aspects of things of such nature, to elevate. The third step is to focus on the purpose of the organization, to stimulate the attainment of ideals and ambitions of all of its members. Remember, iron sharpeneth iron. To disseminate and inculcate those ideals among those with whom its members come in contact, to cooperate with the schools where its chapters may be located in fostering these ideals, to occupy a progressive, helpful, and constructive role in the civic and political life of the community and the nation, to prepare its members for greater usefulness in the causes of humanity, freedom, dignity, and their individuals, and to aid the downtrodden of humanity in its efforts to achieve higher social, economical, and intellectual statuses. As I draw to a close, brother, I will leave you with one of my favorite anecdotes in Greek mythology presented by W.E.B. Du Bois in the Souls of Black Folks chapter titled Of the Wings of Atalanta. Du Bois starts the chapter describing Atlanta, Georgia, a bustling city just after the Civil War, with bounding potential for Black America. He writes, "Such are not men of sturdier make. They of Atlanta turned resolutely toward the future, and that future held aloft vistas of purple and gold." He then moves to discuss Atalante, who was a princess of Boeotia, the fair maiden and the master huntress who vowed that she would never marry a man that could not beat her in a foot race. Of those vowing for her hand in marriage was the young and dashing suitor by the name of Hippomenes. Legend told of her fleet of foot, which assured her victory as well as the death of those suitors who dared to race her. Hippomenes, sentencing himself to death if defeated, chose to distract her during the race by laying 3 golden apples along the course of the race. As the race commenced, Atalante sprinted towards the finish line, and she became distracted and tempted by the golden apples, and eventually focused her attention on these apples instead of the finish line. What we're saying here is that Black folk can get caught up in greed and mammon, but we should focus on the prize. Perhaps when Du Bois was writing that introduction about holding aloft vistas of purple and gold, he was talking about Omega men, men capable of leadership that have flexed their gift in bettering the community. Omega Psi Phi boasts an esteemed membership. In my world, the Wings of Atalanta is the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Lastly, I will leave you with this quote from the Honorable Grand Past Dr. Ernest Everett Just. He wrote this in the 1919 Oracle, where he stated, "Following the Great War, we are now in an era of universal reconstruction. This nation, all nations must play a part. We men of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, all men must play a part. Earth, old traditions, hopes as old as man himself, I. All prejudice too, our heritage from ages gone, part of the price we pay, our evolution, all of these are in balance. Many of these must and shall go. We tremble lest others go. The world is well nigh hysteria. Under the shock of these last 4 years, civilization, fresh from the realm of hell, is convulsive. Orderly activity is difficult indeed in these hyper-excitable times. What shall we do? These things demand clean men, of clear vision, of straight thinking, unselfish men doing what Omega does. And every Omega man must accept this challenge. Out of groups like ours, men who know and feel the utmost, fidelity, liberty, fraternity must come from the world's absolution. Only by the bonds of brotherhood, stronger than life or death, we shall grip harder and more securely, even as ever, greatly numbers feel the tie, shall the world at last stand unfettered of evil because chained in real fraternity. So when men ask who it is that we say that we are, we stand boldly and declare that we are the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. If we as Omega men simply recommit the very best of ourselves to our purpose, embrace our 4 cardinal principles, then there would be no reason for anyone to ask, who do men say that we are? They will know that they will already know what they're dealing with, and that we are the embodiment of excellence. Godspeed, brothers. I wish you health and success. Thank you.
I think his call and his challenge to us falls right in line with our theme, when the world calls, Omega Man answers. Thank you so very much, Dr. Hobson. We now move into the time of the program where we recognize achievers, those men and women who have achieved something of significance in the community and within the fraternity. I'd like to bring forward on this side Brother Reginald Carson, Sean Mack, Justin Valentine. We'll proceed with our first award, Citizen of the Year.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, so, wow. We've had some outstanding speakers in these 9 years, but Maurice, yours took the cake. Thank you for giving us the intellectual aspects to understand where we were and where we are going. That being said, Brother Wright, thank you. In appreciation of being our Achievement Week speaker, we are here to do honor Brother Dr. Maurice J. Hobson, our keynote speaker, Reginald D. Carson, bossless, Justin Valentine, Achievement Week chairman, November the 11th, 2017. Friendship is essential to the soul. Thank you, brother.
As we recognize our Citizen of the Year, many of us know Elizabeth Williams Omalami from her father, the Reverend Hosea Williams. Miss Omalami has accomplished a lot in our community and in the Atlanta area, and she was a tireless and has been a tireless advocate of feeding the homeless and the hungry. If you've ever had the occasion to volunteer, you will see that she is really doing God's work by maintaining the legacy of making sure that men, women, and children in our community and at large are served a hot meal and receive some great services. And she works tirelessly to make sure that people are inspired to understand that God loves them and that there are people who care for the least of these. Elizabeth Williams Omalami would have been here today, but she was called away last night due to the passing of a dear relative. I don't know if we have a representative here on her behalf, but we're going to bestow the 2017 Delta Mu Mu Citizen of the Year Award to Elizabeth Williams Omalami in absentia. Well, now, we move into the Superior Service Award. And beyond what you read in the program, just a little bit about our recipient, Brother Justin Valentine. As you are aware, he is the chair of this Achievement Week brunch and celebration. So you can tell that by that example, he exemplifies superior service. But what's most notable is that, as I mentioned earlier, he's one of the younger members in the chapter. We've been called to serve by many of our current and past Bosselai, Brother Raspberry, who would always admonish us to get 100. We are known as leaders amongst leaders. Our watchword is service. And it's very inspiring when you have a young brother who joins a chapter of men that are probably a little bit older and immediately puts himself to work and thoroughly immerses himself into the challenge of serving on behalf of Omega. The Superior Service Award is not something that's awarded lightly, as there are many capable men that could have received this award. So it's our great honor to recognize the 2017 Delta Mu Mu Chapter Superior Service Award winner, none other than our Achievement Week Chair, Brother Justin Valentine.
Thank you, Brother Tolbert Brother Daniels, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Brother Pat, for those kind words. First, I just want to give honor to God who's ahead of my life and acknowledge some important people that are in my life that are here. First being my wife, Portia. In addition to my mother, the blonde-haired, 30-year-old looking one next to her, Nina Valentine, and my sister Nakia, and then the one that runs the house as of right now, my 2-year-old Justice. Oh, she's on her iPad. So, but service for me really started with my mom. But if I can think back to it, it really kind of hit home for me in college. I played college football at University of Minnesota, had the opportunity to get a full scholarship, blessing, no college debt, no loans. But played running back, coming out of high school, highly recruited. When I got to college, really after that first camp, my college coach said, you're good enough to play, son, but you got some guys in front of you, right? So, and those guys being one of my best friends, Lawrence Maroney, first round draft pick, another guy, Marion Barber, who we played together, was an all-pro, right? So did have actually some good talent in front of me. But my coach said, my offensive coordinator said, I got something for you. If you move up and put your hand in the ground and play fullback, for those that don't know, fullback is it's pretty much a dead position in football now. But I know some of the older bros know that it's a very selfless and unsung position, right? I was hitting my head against those Big Ten linebackers and defensive ends all day. I said, I'll do it, coach, whatever you need me to do. It's selfless. That's what service is about to me. So coming full circle, moving to Atlanta, joining Delta Mu Mu chapter, I come to the chapter meeting, I said, this is the most efficient chapter meeting I've ever seen in my life. Bruhs, you go other places, bruhs get on their high horse, they want to talk, Brothers were on an agenda, brothers stuck to it. Stuck out of my mind. But then, in terms of the service, it was Brother Tim Brown. It was Span. It was bruhs like that pulled me to the side and say, young bro, I need you. I need you to do something for me. It was Reggie Carson. It was John Ray. It was, Papa Joe. It was those bruhs that pulled me to the side and said, look, I need you. And what did I say? I said the same thing I told my coach. Whatever you need me to do.
Amen.
So that's what service is about. And taking it full circle to what Brother Hobson said is, are we doing enough? You'll see some hardware over here for Delta Mu Mu chapter, Georgia Large Chapter of the Year. We've won multiple times. We've been recognized at the district, at the national level, and even President Obama for our Black Rhinos, who many of them are in the room right now. So we got plenty of recognition, plenty of notoriety, plenty of prominent brothers in our chapter, some of the most recognizable names in the city of Atlanta and throughout the country. But are we doing enough? That's the question that Brother Hobson posed. And I say, no, we're not doing enough. In your program, you'll see we put together our Achievement Week committee, and in particular, Brother Matthews put together a year in review. Take a look at that when you get a moment. You'll see everything pretty much that we did for this past 365 days. Number of things. We gave out over $30,000 in scholarships. We raised roughly about $15,000 we gave to the Cancer Society. Monthly, we're in front of Covenant Community, Hope Lodge, Giving Blood, obviously our Black Rhinos on a monthly basis. We do a lot. We do more than majority of the chapters in the fraternity. We pretty much are the model chapter for the fraternity, but that's not enough, bros. We gotta take it to the next level. We gotta start inviting brothers in the city. It's over 10,000 plus unfinancial Omega brothers in this city. We gotta get those brothers back in the fold. We gotta get brothers active, and we gotta be active in our community. So I appreciate it. I wanna say thank you to not only my family, but all the families in the room. with this service and everything that we do, bros, it's a lot of hours. This is a volunteer organization. We ain't get paid for this, you know, but our families and our extended families, the wives, the significant others, the children that we could be spending time with, I want to say thank you to those individuals because you give us the opportunity and the support to be active and to serve the community and to make a difference. So with that, I'll close out. Thank you, enjoy, and thank you for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, you will see Brother Justin Valentine progress through some more significant roles in the chapter in the fraternity. I'd imagine one day he might even become bossless of this chapter. I'd also, on the balance, say that, you know, when you start looking at succession planning, you always want to make sure there's a younger crop of people that are ready to move up as the seniors become a little aged out. Yeah, but you know what? This is not just a young man's game over here, you know, so I want you to know that. I want to also acknowledge that he makes my job very difficult, at least he just did. I have the job of being the timekeeper, and I had this thing down to the nanosecond, right? And he just kind of blew that out of the water, but I'm going to try to make up for it at any rate. You know, when you're the Achievement Week chair, you get a little bit of liberty, but with that said, we now move into the Founders Award. The Founders Award, you can read all about it, and our recipient, Dr. Cleve Taylor. Just a bit of anecdotes about Dr. Cleve Taylor. He's not only a tireless worker and servant, but he also does it in a very quiet way. He's one of the people that you may or may not notice. He's not going to say a lot, but his impact is very huge and profound. If you look at me standing today, upright, with the correct posture, it is because he's the good hands cue. He's taken many of us when we came in like this or walked in like that. And he has straightened us up and put us back on the road to good health. There's probably no one that's more fitting for the 2017 Delta Mu Mu Chapter Founders Award than our very own good hands cue, Brother Dr. Cleve Taylor.
First things, honor to God first. This is a difficult weekend for me. 10 years ago today, I lost my dad. And he's the reason I am the man I am today. And I look amongst all you guys and I look at my mentors, Brother Raspberry, Brother Harrigan, Brother Pat, and do I just say thank you? Because you brothers is what I look up to. Brother Bossless, I look up to you. Not because you're a trade, like me, but he's a man's man. Brother Mac, we've talked on the phone over and over and over. Thank you. But this chapter means a lot to me. It's not about writing checks. It's all about being a cheerful giver. I pledged last year that I would give close to $5,000 to Delta Mu Mu. Might be a little bit short. My wife gets on me all the time, say, you're giving to your chapter brothers all the time. I said, but this is my family. I was born the only child. But when I look out here amongst you guys now, I got brothers.
Amen, sir.
I got people I can call on and be like, hey, I need a ride. I need this, I need that. So Delta Mu Mu is not only a fraternity or a chapter, we're family. And we're gonna continue to be family until the day I die. Thank you.
We now move into recognition of our Omega Man of the Year award. And again, there are countless men that fit this order that could have and probably one day will be recognized as Omega Man of the Year. But our brother Dr. Kevin Harris, Mr. Sparky, as he's called, has been a person that has really poured himself into the field of education and enrichment of youth and young people. It is his passion, it's his profession, and it is his calling to fulfill. And he does it very, very well. He heads up our scholarship committee that has given tens of thousands of dollars over the years to deserving scholars and college aspirants. He is the one person that is the cheerleader and promoter of all things education amongst those who tout the virtues of education. He is a part of the initiated line in Delta Mu Mu chapter. We've only had 2 lines that we've initiated. Mr. Sparky, Brother Dr. Kevin Harris, was a part of that 2010 line. He also goes down in history as also being a number 1 or an ace, so therefore he's in good standing. Not everybody can be an ace. Y'all need to know that. Without further ado, we recognize the 2017 Omega Man of the Year, Brother Dr. Kevin Harris.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dear God, universe, our Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated founders, you show me benevolent things. I make them good or bad and craft my experience. How pleasing am I in your sight? Am I worthy of this Omega Man of the Year enshrinement in your name? Have I demonstrated the 4 cardinal principles to even be considered for this award? Have I demonstrated proficiency in our 20 core competencies, better known as our pearls? My giving to Omega is personal. I never wanted to be part of this organization just to fit in, to wear a t-shirt, or wear some gold boots. My intention is and always will be to create excellence in untapped spaces. A wise man once said to me, your time and talents belong to Omega. Amen. So I decided to narrate my own story today in order to be part of Omega's story tomorrow. I want to thank my wife, Dee Dee. I love you so much. Part of the love is the fact that not only did you marry me, you married the bros. So when I hear your feet come to the basement door and say, what's that noise down there? I'm able to say that's Blackwell, Span, Cleve, Bryson, Quan, Justin, Henry Brown, Wesley Murphy, my dean, Dover. You allow me to create a space in our home so I don't have to go anywhere. Amen. The brothers come home to us, and I send them back home to their wives. I want to thank my LB, Jesse Peoples, for pressing the DMM chapter for his membership selection process. I think Jesse was chasing this chapter for almost 2 years before they decided to give us an opportunity to have this 2010 charter line. I want to thank my LB, William Blackwell, for being our line president and being the ace when I was late to the meetings. I want to thank Dr. Travis Jasper for sponsoring me. He saw something in me. More importantly, he made some calls back to Kent State and talked to the Psi Gamma brothers about my character and who I was as an undergraduate student. Thank my dean. Y'all know him as our Boston's, but he will forever be my dean. Amen. Everything I know, about LG, all the standards of excellence, and just being a true man. I want to thank my ADP, Brother John Howard, teaching us how to sing those songs, Omega Rituals, the Funky Four Corners, and all that good stuff. I want to thank Quan Smith, Harry Manning, because they always tell me that, you know, you always have this edge and you look at people like they're crazy. But you have to understand how you carry yourself as an Omega man when you approach the brotherhood. I want to thank Lavelle Miller for being a solid supporter to my vision and aspirations. The Scholarship Committee, all the brothers on the Scholarship Committee, this award belongs to you more so than me. Friendship is essential to the soul. Since becoming a member of this organization, I have a personal chaplain, Brother Roy Johnson. I have a lunch partner, Brother Darrell Coleman. I have some personal advisors, and Brother Dave Alford and Brother John Ray. Foundation, all them Psi Gamma brothers at Kent State University who I went to undergraduate school with, I love you all. The Psi Omicron brothers at Youngstown State University who actually raised me as a child growing up in Youngstown, Ohio, I love you all. Brothers, on this day, November 11th, 1926, Colonel Charles Young Monument was dedicated. This came by way of the 15th Grand Conclave in Chicago when an appropriation of $1,200 was made to complete the construction of the Young Monument. Today, November 11, 2017, I stand before you partly because I boldly demanded that this chapter appropriate $1,000 to allow me and my committee to put on a metro area college fair which will allow students and families to experience what it's like to go to college, what it's like to be accepted, and what it's like to receive scholarship dollars on the spot. This vessel, in 1 year, we put on 2 college fairs, in which a total of $8.7 million was offered to the students who participated. As we embark on our 10-year anniversary of this fine DMM chapter, let our history remind us for what our founders and organization faced during the expansion and internal development, which was the second day of the organization, 1922 to 1932. The legal status of the Negro in the United States gave impetus for this Achievement Week project. The legal status of the African American in the United States as we embark upon our second decade of Delta Mu Music's existence, 2019 to 2029, must give impetus to more comprehensive services and programming that address the pathologies that exist in our communities, our schools, our political system, our health and employability status, our economic system, and more importantly, let our station in life be an honest and crystal clear reminder of how much we are serving or not serving others. Unlike the founders of our beloved fraternity, the architects of this chapter are no longer college students. We must recognize the unique skill sets of the contingent leaders within this DMM chapter, provide them with the resources and tools needed to be public servants that Omega groomed us to become. Transformation leadership is what I'm speaking about, putting the ball in the hands of the brothers who can carry the team beyond the surface. 20 years from now, when Kevin Harris Jr., Sidney Blackwell, Bryce Raspberry, Malcolm and Bryson Thompson Jr., Nico Carson, Dave Alford Jr., Kajir Smith, Amir Bell, Tyler and Dylan Spann, Peyton Ringer, Jeremiah Crane, and other sons of DMM brothers, write and publish Our Father's Omega. It is my hope, Brother Jonathan Matthews, that you can track down that handwritten note that I sent to Brother Jaden Rudolph and Bryson Thompson in 2010. That note simply stated that my son KJ shall and will be part of an internal mandate that members of this DMM chapter with sons must be members of our Black Rhinos mentoring program. with an abbreviated Lampado's Manual as our guiding curriculum. Brothers, we've been out. We've been out long enough. It's time for us to go all in. We are on the clock, and our balanced scorecard will reveal the DMM verdict these next 10 years. Brother Larry Raspberry asked me while I was online, Brother Harris, what kind of legacy you gonna leave behind? I always thought about that during those 42 days. I'm a life member. I wrote the conceptual framework to the Black Rhinos Mentoring Program in 2008, 2 years prior to becoming Omega Man. Charter line, first ace, scholarship chair since inception, DMM Entrepreneur of the Year in 2012, 4-time Georgia State Chapter of the Year for scholarship, 4 challenge coins. My time and talent truly belongs to Omega. Established the local DMM award process for Omega Psi Phi Fraternity National High School Essay Award winner. $161,000 of DMM scholarship money awarded to local high school seniors. 19 out of 20 of our scholars in the first 4 cohorts are college graduates. 11 of 12 of cohort 5 will graduate in May 2018. We have 3 Gates Millennium Scholars and 1 Posse Scholar. But more importantly, Brother Raspberry, I like spending time with my brick. A successful man is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that others have thrown at him. Spending time with my brick allows me to separate the real from the lie. I don't worry if any man recall my legacy, because I'm trying to live my life in the sight of God's memory. I was challenged, how are you going to do that? God is invisible. I replied, it is obvious, but to no surprise that you do not have any vision. I'll close out by saying, I wrote a poem that was inspired by our brother, Langston Hughes, called Mother to Son. This poem is titled Father to Son. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me is a date with destiny. My only assignment is to continue to give you the best of me. Growing up in poverty and despair, I had the audacity to dare to dream through the days of joy and years of pain. Live and learn, but never live in shame or in vain. Take heed of my fear, as in face everything and rise, as lust, hate, greed, and envy are right before your eyes. Look to the hills and keep your eyes on the prize. Watch out for the devil, always in disguise. I have raised my glass and said cheers. Over the years, enjoyed my fair share of beers. Embraced my tragedies and triumphs as they too brought me to tears. Live your life nobly and never second guess me. The fruits of your wealth are deeply rooted in my tree. Life for me is a date with destiny. Through you, let the world know God has blessed me. That is my poem, personal poem, to my son, Kevin Harris Jr. The last time I was brought to this podium for an award, he was here with me. This time, he's here with me through this poem. Ladies and gentlemen, life and death are 2 perfect complements. However, when it is my time to go before God for eternal enshrinement, it is my hope that I am empty and that I have used or perhaps gave away all the gifts and talents that he has blessed me with. Dear God, universe, and our Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated founders, you show me benevolent things. I make them good or bad and craft my experience. No one told my 5 sisters growing up that hazing was illegal. So part of that process is the reason why I'm standing here today. But brothers, waste no time arguing about what a good Omega man should be, and just simply be one. Long live the spirit of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you.
So we do have some other awards. We do have one more it's actually not here, it's being ordered, and that is the Bossos Award. So one of the great things I have and privileges I have as being bosses of Delta Mu chapter is acknowledging from time to time a brother whose time and talents go above and beyond where we are with regards to our coins. And this year's recipient winner, he's not here, he's actually attending a wedding, but this year's recipient award winner has offered us thousands of countless hours of free legal help and assistance. As you all know, we have a event we do every year called Send Justice and Seersucker. It's a very profitable event that we throw. And in doing that, we always have trademarks, infringements of individuals that come after and try and use that trademark. Our award recipient of the Bosses Award has constantly sent off numerous weekly, daily cease and desist letters on behalf of the chapter. He's also assisted us in some other legal matters that we've had along the way. You'd be surprised when you are what I like to say, a small business, which is what we basically become, how many times people will come after you for various things. So this year's Bosses Award winner, and we'll present it during our next fraternity meeting, is Brother Shofatia Watson. I'm not going to keep us here with closing remarks because everything has been said and stated. Brother Hobson stated it, Brother Taylor stated it, Sparky stated it. We've done a lot in Delta Mu chapter. As you all can look in this booklet, that this outstanding booklet that the committee came up with. Let me get that one award right there. That one, yeah, that one right there in your hand. This right here, this is the hardware. So this was our State of Georgia Graduate Chapter of the Year. We won this award 3 years of the last 5 years. And it's great to get acknowledged by our peers for what we do. A couple years ago, we submit our booklet for our state awards, and I'm a little conflicted when we do this because it's about, how many pages is it, Brother Ray? It's like 85 pages of all the stuff that we've done throughout the year. If I had my druthers, we would just do one page. We gave away $36,000 in scholarship, period. We held a college fair where $5 million in scholarship awards were given out, period. We do a Relay for Life event where we roughly give $12,000 in monies to those at need, period. We conduct and do our Hope Lodge program where we go out and feed individuals. We do our Covenant Community where we go out and clothe and take care of individuals, period. These type of awards are great to get. But what we do as Omega Men transcends awards. We give, we work. Brother Hobson, you stated, you're right, there are things we need to do more of. We're always challenged by what we do. Brother Poole, by other brothers, Brother Johnson, they challenged me in saying what they wanted to do. Brother Harris, with regards to the college fair, was a challenge. How do we push us forward? I will say this, and I've said it publicly before. Omega is not doing what it's supposed to be doing on a national level. There is no reason why every president of the United States is not meeting with Omega Man and a member of Delta Sigma Theta or Alpha Kappa Alpha to address the social plights of African Americans. We are the talented 10. We should be at the forefront of every discussion dealing with black folks. Now, we're doing it here locally. We need to do it on a national level. To the men of DMM, can I have you please stand up? I know we have some of you that are veterans, and I know we have Veterans Day, so I'm going to take a little bit of a pause from that and say, as your bossless, I salute each and every one of you for your time, your talents, and your efforts given not just to your fraternity, but to our community. Your work, your deeds are shown by us winning awards, but they're shown more so by the individuals who are attending colleges and universities, by the individuals whose lives you touched and have assisted along the way. That is what our founders created us for, to live above and beyond the ideal of what Omega Psi Phi is. So to that, gentlemen, I salute you on this Veterans Day. Godspeed. Well done, Omega Man.